Hi all, Dentolux here with another gaming video. Today I'll be covering two Amstrad games, and both of them are movie licenses. The majority of the movie-based games which appeared on the CPC 464 were rubbish. Let us see if these titles prove to be amongst the rare exceptions to the rule. The first game is Cobra, the Sylvester Stallone film promoted with the line, "Crime is the disease, he's the cure." I'm sure it sounded badass when it was pitched back in the studio, but it's very easy to mock. For example, one movie critic, after watching Cobra, made the remark, "Stallone is the disease. Acting lessons are the cure." If he didn't rate the motion picture highly, I can only imagine what he would think of this pretty bizarre game. The player controls Cobretti on his quest to clean up the streets of scum. As this is based on an action movie, the logical course would have been to turn it into a beat-em-up or shoot-em-up. But if anything, the closest genre I would class this game as would be a platformer. When playing the game, I spent most of the time avoiding enemies rather than taking them on. Run, Cobra, run! Run like Stallone after Australian immigration has inspected your suitcase for growth hormone. When you're an aging action star, it's not easy to flee the cops. And in this game, it's not easy to avoid getting hit. The high difficulty level is one thing that will put off most players from playing the game for more than a few minutes. For a start, it's a challenge just getting used to the keyboard controls. H and J make you walk, whilst 8 and U control jump and crouch. Who thought that's a good control layout? You have to be double jointed not to find that uncomfortable. From the get-go, you learn that most of the things on the screen are hostile, and almost impossible to dodge. You can crouch to avoid the guys with the bazookas, whilst the knife throwers can be bypassed with a well-placed jump. It's quite a chore though, because the manner in which Cobretti jumps feels very clunky. You sort of hover a little before dropping straight down. Any enemies with guns are a pain, because their shots will hit you, unless you use the Obi-Wan tactic. In other words, take the high ground. One of the reasons why the game is so hard is because the enemies move way faster than the player. And don't think it's just a human race out to get you. Oh no. Every so often, ducks will fly down and attack you. Not to mention parrots who sit perched on windows and poop on the player when they walk by. I guess when you name yourself after a snake, you're just asking for birds to hate you. Cobretti can punch enemies, which makes them explode to death. Getting near enough to attack anyone is, however, asking for trouble. Another thing that can be punched are windows. These sometimes reveal a hamburger, which in most games would be an energy boost. In Cobra, however, picking up a burger equips the player with a random weapon, such as a gun or throwing knife. Having a weapon makes things easier, but don't expect to run through killing everything in sight. Even with a weapon, going toe-to-toe with an enemy will in the long run end in tears. Graphically, this game looks better than the Commodore 64 or Spectrum versions. Gameplay-wise, I however have to say that the Amstrad port drew the short straw. It feels unfinished. Whether you walk left or right, the level just scrolls on forever. Also, although the game displays how many lives you have, it doesn't provide you with an energy bar. How many hits you can take before you die is complete guesswork. I would accept the game as being a title where you just try to get the highest score possible, but guess what? There's no high score table. When you lose your lives, the game just restarts. Well, one thing I can say is, I won't be giving this a high score. 4 out of 10. So, on to the next game. Friday the 13th. Based on the popular horror franchise, I guess I would class this as a very simple survival horror romp. 10 happy campers have decided to go to Crystal Lake, home of the bloodthirsty Jason. Gee, who thought this place would be a good summer vacation spot? Where shall we go next year? The Blair Witch Woods, perhaps? The player takes control of one of the 10 group members and has to do his best to protect his pals from the infamous serial killer. Easier said than done though, because Jason, in this game at least, is a master of disguise. For all you know, one of the girls wearing a pretty blue dress could transform into the axe-wielding maniac. To be honest, the first time I played the game, when Jason appeared in his true form, I didn't notice it was him until he started attacking someone. The graphics are far from great, and Jason doesn't wear his mask, so can you blame me? So you walk around the camp looking for Jason. The camp isn't very big, but it has a few buildings you can enter. To protect yourself, the player should pick up one of the weapons which are dotted about. These range from close-range weapons such as pitchforks and knives to projectiles. Beating Jason is surprisingly easy with a long-ranged weapon. Just fire away, run, turn around, fire, and just keep repeating until he drops. Once Jason has been vanquished, you take control of a new character and start all over again from scratch. If you screw up, the game tells you, "Oh dear, you seem to have lost your head. What a shame. Ha ha ha." Really cheesy, but I have to admit I laughed the first time I saw it. Aside from the graphics, my biggest complaint concerns the game's music. This switches from one tune to another on a regular basis, as you move from location to location. It gets nauseating after a while. The upbeat songs they use seem completely out of place in a horror game where you're meant to be fearing for your life. Here's a brief sample to illustrate my point. Seriously, how horrible is that? If someone used that as a ringtone, I might well decide to don a hockey mask and start to butcher people when the phone rings. Needless to say, this game, like Cobra, doesn't impress me much. It has some nice ideas, what with the various weapons and the aspect of guessing which of your friends is Jason, but there isn't enough to do. It was okay to play once, but after 10 minutes I got bored. Sure, it's an old game and I shouldn't be expecting much, but this feels like something that would be more at home on the Atari rather than the Amstrad. It's that basic. I'm gonna give Friday the 13th an unlucky 4 out of 10. Well, thanks for watching, and take care.